Good morning. Welcome to. Is it Wednesday? I think it's Wednesday. Welcome to Wednesday. We're going to talk about lean production today. So I thought, sometimes I start the stream a little bit late, a few minutes late. I thought, you know what, I'm going to be dead on it today. I'm going to be absolutely dead on it. Make sure that I start dead on time. So it is absolutely 10 o'clock. So yeah, hope you're okay. Hope you're well. I've just realised as well I've not got my one thing that I have missed today is I'm going to do it really quickly. Hopefully it won't affect you. Is I'm going to do. I'm just going to get BBC News ready because I have forgot to do that today. We're ready for the end of the stream as we always do. Have a look at the news. Have a look at what's going on. On my multiple screens I have open at the same time. I thought it might be a nice little video if I took you through Mr. Businessman's studio, show you how my setup is and everything like that. But then I thought that'd be tediously boring, and it's hard enough to get students to watch these videos as it is, let alone make them do stuff like that. All right, so you won't be seeing how this is. I've just got a Mac and an ultra wide and that as well, and I've also got a big this as well, which is for the eagle-eyed viewers is Reaper's gun off Overwatch. It's really not useful. That's stupid to try and shoot it like that. It fires these all things, and you can only do one at once as well. What's the point of that? Should at least fire two, shouldn't it? It's got two of these. Bang bang. But yeah, still looks dope. Bang 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 bang. Yes. Oh, did you see that? So yeah, a little bit of entertainment there for you. I like to entertain you in the morning. I like to show you a little bit of something special. Well, there you go. Yeah, let's get on to lean production, shall we? Let's go. So lean production. I like lean production. It's a bit of the topic. It's a topic, a part of the spec, which I think is underrated, and people don't spend enough time on lean production understanding it, because a lot of people's jobs actually revolve around lean production and the implementation of sort of cost cutting measures, but also waste cutting measures as well. I just want to draw your attention to as well. Have you noticed? We've come full circle. I've got my I've got the first T-shirt on that I wore on the first stream. I don't know how many videos we've done in between now, but it's a hell of a lot. And I feel like we've come full circle. So thank you for coming on this journey with me. Except if this is the first time you've watched it, and then welcome. That's not going to happen though, is it? Anyway, lean production, yeah. A lot of people's jobs rely on this kind of thing. Like we've got a significant amount of people who work in production, that kind of stuff. They work in lean production and try and it sort of instills the principles of lean production, sort of completely take over their life to an extent. And there's books on it. There's absolutely loads of books on it you can read, massive dissertation style things on it, huge big thick books about lean production, about the ideas of lean production and the various techniques that you can use. And it is quite interesting, basically trying to reduce wastage and things. It's a good way to be, isn't it? And I think it's business showing that it not only understands it from a business perspective of trying to reduce costs and things like that, but it also understands it from an ecological point of view and trying to save the planet and things like that. Because we've only got one. Now, let's shoot straight on. Okay, so what are we going to talk about today? Well, we're going to explain what is meant by lean production. We're going to explain the range of lean production practices that are used to reduce the waste and improve productivity, including Kaizen, which is known as, which is the literal translation is continuous improvement, just-in-time production, cell production, and time-based management, all of which are individually interesting. So if you are someone who doesn't know what the hell I'm talking about, and you've never heard of these things before, then buckle up, because this is going to blow your head off. But if you're someone who needs to do this for revision, then very, very simple, 4 distinctly different types of lean production techniques. But remember, the phrase lean production, they don't just want you to talk in the exam about lean production. If it says, if the question is something like, does lean production always help improve productivity or something like that, or always improve success, they don't want you to talk about lean production as a whole. They want you to talk about these 4 different things. So it's important that you know these 4 different concepts, all right? It says evaluate the importance and impact of lean production for businesses and their stakeholders. So obviously, as we always talk about on the stream, stakeholders are going to be really important. Okay, so what is lean production then? Well, lean production aims to remove all elements of waste from the production process and as a result, increase productivity and reduce costs. So remember that the only way that we can really improve our productivity or improve our sort of profits essentially is that we can improve revenue, we can increase revenue, or we can reduce costs. That's the only way that we can do it. There's only 2 aspects of it, isn't there? So we can make more money off our products, or we can reduce the amount we spend during the process of making the products or selling the products. That's the only thing that we can do. So there's a range of techniques that we can use, one of which is lean production. And the idea around this is, well, actually, let's reduce waste. That's part of the cost. A big part of the cost is that wastage, isn't it? That we're doing. So let's reduce the waste so that we can use the money for other things. We could potentially buy less of the raw material so we can produce more. Our efficiency goes up. We could potentially sell on the stuff that we're not using, the wastage potentially, things like that. We could do that, or we could we could do a range of things with it, couldn't we? We could the main thing we could do with it though is we can definitely reduce our cost levels, which is hopefully, even though if we can't increase our revenue, we can sort of decrease our outgoings, can't we? All right, so lean production encompasses several management theories and all designed to achieve the reduction of removal of waste within a business. Remember, these 4 different things are going to encompass what you're going to be talking about in your exam. If you are a business owner and you're not looking to talk about exam stuff, but you are interested in these kinds of things, then these are the 4 different sort of pillars of lean production. And I would be looking into these individually to see which suits your needs. So just really, really quick, let's go over each one, okay? So, first of all, before we talk about anything else, what is waste? Well, waste is anything that it's an activity that raises costs without adding value to the product. It's anything which, because it doesn't just have to be physical waste. It doesn't just have to be from an ecological perspective. It doesn't have to be just rubbish in that respect. It doesn't have to just be that. It can be things like land, space, wastage. It's anything that doesn't add any value but raises costs. So we were talking yesterday, weren't we, about or a couple of days ago on stream about B&Q and the fact that they have so much space and keep so much stock, and the way that they were getting round off, they were reducing their waste of space was by renting the space out to supermarkets and things like that, which I think is a fantastic idea. And supermarkets in turn were doing it, weren't they, with various businesses. Argos isn't one of them because it's the same company, but things like hairdressers, things like phone shops, things like, it happens in foreign countries a lot more than it does here in the hypermarkets and stuff like that. They do it all the time. They're really on it with things like this. But what resources could be wasted? Well, we've got space in terms of land. It's not doing anything for us. We're not using this. I have this feeling at this minute I'm trying to do lean production on my house because my garage is pretty useless at the minute. It's just a dumping ground. So I use it to stick stuff in. That's just useless. So I want to get it converted into something that is usable. That would be me doing lean production, really. That's me trying to minimize the wastage of space in my home, because at this moment in time I've got a big chunk of space there that is unusable, or not. It's not unusable because I'm using it for something, but it's not usable to what I could be using it for. I'm not using it to its pinnacle there, am I? So that's why people, get extensions and things like that, because they are essentially doing lean production on their home, on their lives, aren't they? What about raw materials then? Are we wasting them? Are we not buying enough of them? Are we not getting economies of scale? Are we producing in a way that's quite, if you've got a square, say you've got a piece of wood, it's a square, and we just use a circle in the middle of it. You've got all that outside bit, haven't you? That's being wasted. Are we physically wasting produce or stocks? So in terms of this, we've got stocks and labour. In terms of this, if we've got stocks and shares as well, is a good point in this. Are we actually making it pay for us, or are we just keeping hold of stuff for no reason? If we don't need to be holding shares for some reason, why are we not making them pay for us? So if we're a PLC, could we be putting them onto the market? Could we be, selling them more effectively, that kind of stuff? So we've got it. We could have stock from the perspective of stock of stuff, actual finished products, but we could also have stocks in terms of stocks and shares. We could potentially have that are we making it pay for us, aren't we? What about labour? Are we getting the most out of people? Are we wasting the time? Are we not giving them the correct equipment? Are we not giving them, the right amount of machinery or the correct training to be able to do the work? That's going to significantly increase or rather decrease the efficiency of those people, aren't they? Time wastage, we're going to talk about that in more detail in a moment, but time wastage is a massive one. And capital wastage. So capital, remember, we talked about capital is in cash, wasting physical resources, but we've also got capital in terms of machinery as well, haven't we? And are we actually using these things, or is there a lot of the time when they're turned off or they're not being used as efficiently as they could be doing? All right. Now, let's talk about Kaizen first, because Kaizen's a really, really interesting one, I think. So Kaizen is a Japanese word meaning continuous improvement. This takes into the view that one of the main objectives of the existence is to be continuously making small incremental steps in the improvement of quality, design, and waste reduction. So businesses focusing on small incremental steps in the improvement of quality, design and waste reduction, it's in contrast to making less regular but larger changes that often cost a large amount of money and that productivity levels out again before the business has to catch up. Okay, let me just break this down for you. What we're saying, because Kaizen's a fantastic way to do things. Now, I think that Kaizen shows a reason, or it shows a... It's the sort of secret to why people, when people want to make changes in their lives, when you see like really, really obese people on TV and things like that, and they really want to make a change to their life, and we're not talking about these people who are just complaining about how fat they are or whatever. We're not talking about that. We're talking about people who genuinely want to make a change and things like that, and are like 30 stone or something crazy like that. The ones who are successful use Kaizen. And what they do is they make small incremental changes. And it doesn't have to be losing weight. It could be strength. It could be being athletic. It could be becoming better at education. It could be better at revision. It could be better at exam technique. It could be things like that. All right. Now, Kaizen requires us to make small incremental changes. So if you are 30 stone and you're having 5 pie and chips a day, usually what businesses try and do is they will try and just go, okay, well, we're not having any pie and chips today then. We're going to have salads. That is a surefire way, within reason, a surefire way of failing change in business. And change in business is one of the most difficult things to implement. And something which, if you go on to higher education, if you go on to degree level stuff, masters and things like that, that's what it's about, changing business, because that's all we can talk about. It's the main focus of business as we get higher and higher. So in terms of this, we're talking about small, just to take it back to the person who wants to make changes to their own lives, small incremental changes makes a big difference. Instead of having 5 pie and chips a day, have 4 pie and chips a day, and then they have that for a week, and then they'll have 3 pie and chips a day, and they'll have 2 pie and chips a day. And those small incremental changes, they'll start going to the gym a little bit. They'll start, they won't cut out chocolate out of their life. They'll start having slightly less and slightly less. Same with smokers. Yes, you could just go cold turkey and stop, but the most successful people tend to start weaning themselves off, don't they? They only have a cigarette every so often. They only have a cigarette once a day. Then they have one every other day, and then they stop completely. That is a much more sensible way of doing things, because it gives people a chance to get used to the change, doesn't it? It doesn't. It adjusts the new normal. It allows you to get used to the new normal thing, doesn't it? And that's what Kaizen's all about. So Kaizen's all about getting those incremental changes, but getting people to be on board with it as well. Because we talked about yesterday the hardship of getting employees to use technology. That could be Kaizen. Kaizen could be the technological change. That could be implementing new technology. And it's difficult to get people on board with it. So what do? We need to make small incremental changes to be able to have a big impact. Okay, instead of making massive changes and then having to deal with the consequences of that. Because let's say you're 30 stone and you're used to having 5 pie and chips a day, then you have no pie and chips a day. That will have an effect on your body. You know, you're going to be cranky. You're going to be tired. You're going to be sore. You might have to go to the toilet more because your body's like sort of going crazy a little bit because of how much fat and stuff it hasn't got usually. You are going to go through some pain. You might even get ill. Now that can all be avoided by doing the more sensible thing of and I'm not talking about in all situations, because there are situations why this wouldn't be applicable, would there? Because if we're in a crisis situation, if we said that person who has 5 pie and chips a day, the 30 stone person, if they were about to die, if we know this company was about to close and it was crisis time and we knew that we had to do something, then yeah, small incremental change isn't going to work, is it? We need to change and we've got to do it now. We've got to do a significant change. But that's in crisis time, isn't it? That's not the usual thing. That's not talking about how this company is going to be successful consistently. That's talking about how to save a business from failure in this immediate time. In terms of, yes, you need to stop eating pie and chips today or else you'll be dead tomorrow. Well, there you go then, isn't it? I suppose it speaks for itself then. If there's an external or internal factor, which means that we can't use Kaizen, then that's a good bit of AO4 there for you. Okay. So this is how it looks in terms of, on a physical thing. As you can see, over time, we are constantly going up. So our output is increasing over time. That way. Instead of going really up, like we're going and just constantly going up like that. That's essentially what we're trying to achieve, isn't it? That's essentially what we're always trying to do, is get better. So if I was to take you to a gym and ask you to lift some weights, that's what I would want to be seeing from my person who I was training with. I want to be seeing small incremental changes. I'd be wanting to see, strength increasing. I'd be wanting to see stamina increasing. I wanted to be seeing weight loss in terms of small incremental changes. It's like these people, isn't it? I don't want to talk about weight loss too much, but it's just because I feel like it's a really good metaphor for the situation. But you see these people, don't you, who they go to Weight Watchers or something like that. You get these big fat people, they go to Weight Watchers. I'm not having a go at fat people, by the way, because I'm fat myself. So you can't see the rest of me, but I'm overweight myself, so I'm allowed to have a jab. But I'm not having a jab too much. Before you start getting upset with me. You see these big fat people, don't you? They go to Weight Watchers, and then the week after they say, "Oh, I've lost £5 pound. I've lost £10 to this week." Well, most of that's water weight. But what do those people do? They revert back to form, because then they think, "Oh, it's really easy to go and lose weight, so I'll go and have my 5 pie and chips again." So from a business's perspective, they do exactly the same thing. If you change too much, people don't like it. Look at the state we're in now, right? If we were to have a look at change in business at this moment in time, let's just hold this a second, okay? Let's have a look at the current situation that we're in, the pandemic situation. The fact that I am teaching you from here, this is an unnatural change, isn't it? And it's too fast. We didn't use Kaizen. We didn't get time to readjust to the situation and make small changes, did we? We didn't get to do that. No, we completely changed it. And we're having struggles with mental health issues. We're having struggles with people not being able to exercise enough. We're having struggles, I'm sure students are having problems and things like that. And that is Kaizen in action, essentially, isn't it? This is the opposite of Kaizen. This isn't how you don't implement change like this. A much more effective way of implementing the change for the lockdown would have been to do it to as soon as they found out about it, which was a couple of months ago, to start stepping it up bit by bit, to start closing shops, instead of just closing all shops altogether, to start closing some and then leave it a couple of bits and then a bit more. Now, why is it then that the government didn't decide to do that? Well, it's for a number of reasons, but as I said, it's because it's in a crisis situation. So they are looking at it as, is this viable? Is it sensible to do these things? And at this moment in time, it probably wasn't viable for them to do Kaizen. To an extent, it probably was, because apparently they did know about this months ago and they should have started doing this as soon as they could. But maybe we would have been a bit more on it if if we did it with a Kaizen method rather than the other one. Okay, so just to say, so can you see how it works anyway? So, small incremental check, quality, design, waste reduction. Okay, we're constantly improving, and we want everyone in the business to be involved as well. So, getting people involved and getting people to come up to us. We can have little boxes where we can suggest things, things like this. It's fantastic ideas that we want. Because if I ask you as a student now how to be a better student, you would probably be able to tell me certain techniques that you've developed to be able to get through exams. And sometimes it might just be, well, I wait until the day before and then I go mental with my revision. Well, and if that's been successful for you, although it's not something I would suggest, well, there you go. Then you can suggest that in terms of our Kaizen, can't you? You can suggest that as a revision technique. You can suggest that as a way of revising for other students. Not something, again, I would suggest, but ultimately, you're more of an expert in being a student than I am. I'm more of an expert at being a teacher than you are at this moment in time. So I can help you in other ways, can't I? But we need to use the skills and abilities of our workforce to be able to adequately, to be able to do this and get everyone on board with it. So Kaizen is mainly implemented through the use of Kaizen groups, which is groups of employees from different aspects of the business who meet regularly to discuss problems and suggest improvements. Mostly these improvements are made at no or minimal additional cost. Why is that? Well, we do it on company time, and these are voluntary things. It's not like they get paid extra to do them. So what do? We get people together. Do you remember the school council at school? They were useless, weren't they? Absolutely useless. I don't even know why they bother getting together. Well, I'm on the school council. The school council is a Kaizen group. Okay, so you get them together, you ask them what they want, can we have different things on the lunch menu? No. Can we, we want blah, blah, blah. Right, well, it doesn't matter, does it? Because you're still not having it. I don't think one thing, I don't want this to turn into I hate the school council, but what was that about? What was the point of a school council at the time? I don't know. I apologise if you were on the school council, but you were useless. You were a complete waste of time. It was a Kaizen group. The idea was to get some things, and I think they were purely doing it to satisfy stakeholders, really, in terms of parents and Ofsted and things. I don't think they really cared about your opinion. Sorry to be the bearer of bad news. Okay, so why do we talk about Toyota? Well, Toyota was one of the fundamental they were one of the people to come up with this idea of Kaizen. They are sort of documented as the creators of this, but it was being talked about in a range of places at the same time. But they were the really big front runners in this industry. So I've got a couple of videos for you, which I will put up. I will link in the description for you. But let's just have a look at these. So how has Toyota implemented lean production? These are the couple of things that they were doing. Now, so first of all, they weren't doing any stockpiling. What do we mean by that? We weren't keeping any stock. So what we do is, when we're using lean production, we only make cars that we've already sold. Okay? So if you buy a Toyota, they don't just have some Toyotas hanging about in the factory ready, waiting for someone to buy them. They will make the Toyota once you've made it. That means that we're not stockpiling stuff. There's no wastage in that respect. We know that we've already sold it. One person checking end quality. All right. So instead of having this consistent thing, we do want to check quality consistently, and we'll do quality control and quality assurance again in the next couple of lessons. But thinking about this, we don't have loads and loads of people doing it. We just have one person who's responsible for making sure that the product is finished and is up to standard. That means that there is an easable, traceable line of responsibility, but it also helps people, to be working on other things, because they said, well, wait a minute, we don't need 10 people doing this. Well, we've always had 10 people doing this. Well, we shouldn't have, because we only need one person to do it. Get it right first time. This is an important one, isn't it? And this is what I try and instill into my students, of trying to get it right first time. Learn the stuff. This is how I was able to be able to do well in education, okay? And I don't mean that in a like I'm gloating way. I wasn't a good student, definitely not. Like when I was at school, I learned techniques. I used psychological techniques to be able to get on, and I continue to do that to an extent. I try and find out what people want and give it to them. Satisfy the stakeholders. That's ultimately what I think everybody who's going to be successful has to do. But when I was at school, I didn't. I don't think I didn't do revision at all. Like, I just didn't revise. But what I did do is advised So I, if that's the correct terminology, I learnt it first time. I did actually listen in class, so I knew the stuff, and I must have been listening pretty damn well because there was very few bits. And another thing I used as well was common sense. I tried to use common sense and good decision-making processes in my exam to try and answer the question the way that I thought they wanted me to answer it. Now, it didn't work, and that managed to get me through GCSEs with good grades. So I totally empathise with students when they come to my class and say, I don't know how to revise, and I don't know how to do this, I don't know how to do that. I totally empathise with you, and I am the first to say, I'm never paint myself as this perfect student, because I'm not. But I am good at listening first time, and I try and get it right first time because I can't stand redos. I hate doing that. I hate changing things after the pro. I'd rather just do it first time. It's a waste of time for me. I hate wasting time. So yeah, that's a really important part of this. Okay, so get it right first time. We don't want to be going back. We don't want to make any changes. We don't want mistakes. Then we've got just-in-time manufacturing. Now, we will talk about just-in-time manufacturing in a minute, so I'm not going to go over that in a second. I'll go over that in a second. Then we've got minimal inventory. We know that we're not supposed to keep loads of stock because there's no benefit to us. Let's try and get that stock in when we need it. And then it says, give 4 ways that they could have used within Kaizen: continuous improvement, team working, new ways of doing this in the classroom, eliminating waste. Now, when we say new ways of doing this in the classroom, Toyota actually have their own on-site classrooms where they teach Kaizen. And they are really obsessive about it. They really, really obsess about getting it right first time and making sure that, people are happy with the stuff and that, people are adequately trained and things like that. It's very impressive to see. So in order to work effectively, they must have the following elements: a trained workforce. Do not skimp on your workforce. It's really important that if you want to be getting good grades out of your students, spend time with them. If you want to be getting good stuff out of your employees, make sure that you spend time, training them, asking them what they want, train them effectively. Effective communication systems, that doesn't mean just digitally, but it means that being able to speak to your manager, being able to speak to your manager's manager, being able to act on things. So if we say we want your opinion on things, actually act on them. Because that used to really annoy me. I hate it when businesses do that. Don't ask my opinion. Because you become really, really... disillusioned with it all. You must have had this in your own thing, whether it's school or whether you're at work or whether it's things, when you have managers come to you and ask your opinion, or you'll have an email asking for your opinion on stuff, and you think, you don't care about my opinion. Why are you asking? You're ticking a box. And I know that, so there's no point. So in terms of this, if you've not got effective communication systems, if you don't have a workforce that think that you're going to actually implement the things that they say, and not every time, but Kaizen's got to work both ways, then there's no point in doing it. Third one's job security. This is because if you are effective at Kaizen and you are constantly trying to improve your efficiency, you might Kaizen yourself out of a job. So if you are really efficient, if you're really good at it, you might actually Kaizen yourself out of a job, which would be a massive issue, wouldn't it? So what do we have to say is we need companies to be confident, and Toyota definitely do this, is they guarantee that they will not make you redundant if you come up with a brilliant way of improving the business. So if you Kaizen yourself out of a job, then you won't be. They will find something else for you, which is what you need, isn't it? What's something that, because remember, job security is one of the core facets of what a stakeholder, employee, wants in the business. Understanding of the production process, they've got to be experts in the field in terms of they've got to know how this works, and you've got to know that they know. You've got to trust them that they know how to do the job better than you do. Students think that when they go into work that the manager knows how to do their job better than them, so they should sort of help them like a teacher. Yes, to an extent, they should help them when they first start the job, but when you go for a job, a lot of the time, unless it's an absolute bottom of the, putting things on shelves or, being a waiter or something like that, they're assuming you know your stuff. They're not there to teach you how to do the job. They assume you know how to do the job to begin with. You wouldn't have applied for the job if you didn't know how to do it. It's a difficult one, isn't it? You don't want the teacher coming in to a new job and then expecting, someone to teach them how to be a teacher. It doesn't work like that, does it? Certain aspects of it, new technical systems, whatever, computer systems or whatever they use, yeah, fair play, but the rest of it. Okay, and a motivated workforce. Now, we're going to talk about motivation again in a couple of lessons' time, so don't worry too much about that. But if you remember about the different motivation techniques, Taylorism, about money, Mayo, we've got Maslow, hierarchy of needs. There's a range of them, isn't it? And we're going to talk about them again, but don't worry about that. You need them to be motivated to do it anyway. All right. So we've just been through that, but you can stop the stream if you want to write any of this down. Feel free. Okay. Benefits before we get on to the second one: increased productivity, increased quality. We've got a reduction in waste, improved motivation of the workforce. Why? Because they feel like they're part of something. They feel like they're achieving something. Increased competitiveness. As long as if you're doing this more effectively than your competitors are, then that's going to be really, really good for you, isn't it? That's going to be really, really good for your stakeholders in terms of increasing productivity and hopefully profitability in the business. Reduced disruption and labour unrest in terms of hopefully less trade union things, less disruption in terms of people refusing to work and things like that, because hopefully we're constantly making the business better. Remember as well, this isn't only just production. Kaizen is in Toyota. Kaizen is king. Kaizen is everything. It's about making sure that you're constantly. It's a good way of thinking, really, isn't it? Constantly improving, never being happy with what you've got, always trying to improve it slightly. If you are if you're in the gym and you've got your stamina up and you're happy with your stamina, work on your strength. If your strength is good, work on your balance. If your balance is good, that's an advert, isn't it? I'm sure I've seen that on an advert. But it's a good point. They're talking about Kaizen. Less need for large-scale investment as well. No need for massive investment at any one time. We just do small incremental change. Need for that good cash flow to be there, though, okay? Problems, though. High training costs to get people on board with this. It is a cultural change, and if you've not implemented it like Toyota did to begin with, everyone knows if you go and work at Toyota, this is the way you are going to work. But if you don't know that, it's going to be a bit of a culture shock for you. Slow to set up, and it's hard to get people on board. Sometimes, as I said, we've got that psychological block that people don't like change. And maybe a productivity dip when making changes to a worker involvement as well. Because remember, if we're making changes, significant changes all the time, we might not be able to maximize our capacity utilization and our output. That essentially, that's what we're there for, isn't it? Okay, take a breath. Kaizen, yeah? Okay, we're going to talk about just-in-time. All right, just-in-time production aims to ensure that parts, raw materials, and components are received and products are only made when there is demand for the parts and demand for the products. In other words, if it isn't wanted, don't order it. If it isn't sold, don't make it. All right. Now, why I mentioned just in time before about Toyota, and when I mentioned him, is saying that they won't make a car unless you've already bought it, and that is just in time production. That means that we need to make it. And yes, there is a little bit of a delay. You can't just get it next day, things like that. But Jaguar Land Rover do it as well, and a lot of the car manufacturers. In fact, I'd be surprised if any car manufacturers in the UK don't do this, other than really, really high-end ones, like Morgan and people like that. They probably don't do it because, to an extent they might. It's just because if you think about what they're actually physically doing, they might use less just-in-time production because of the niche market, because of the customization and things like that. I don't know. Perhaps they will, perhaps they won't. But in terms of this is one of the issues with Brexit as well. This is one of the issues with why people were talking about it at the time. This was to do with the fact that you need a good connection to your suppliers. You need to be able to be confident about supply and connection to them. So if Brexit disrupts that, then it's going to disrupt their ability to be able to work like this. And a lot of the car manufacturing in the UK, the only way that they're able to do this is because they've got a just-in-time production schedule, essentially, because they're able to take advantage of the cost savings, the efficiency increases and things like that of this. So if you reduce that, then essentially your competitive advantage is gone. Is there any point of you being able to do it? That's what people's worry was. All right. So let's move on. Now, advantages and disadvantages. We've got improved cash flow levels are reduced. Improved cash flow, stock levels are reduced. Yeah, we're not holding loads of stock, are we? We're only asking for it when it wants. If you want to be able to use a tyre at 3 p.m. today, then if it turns up at 10 to 3, then that's perfect, because that means we've only wasted 10 minutes in terms of having stock on site. That it only has to be. We can use the same space, can't we? You know that space is going to be difficult to use. More factory space is available for production because we can free the space up, so we're not just got rubbish hanging about, or rather not rubbish, but stuff that we're not using at this moment in time. Links with suppliers are improved. We're going to have a really good connection to our suppliers for this. And as I said, it does really put a strain on that relationship sometimes, especially if there's external factors like Brexit, like political stuff that are affecting our ability to communicate with suppliers. It could have a major impact on our ability to do it. And the car industry in the UK is going to hit hard. You can see it's really sort of petering down its production in the UK because they just don't know how they're not going to be able to do the just-in-time production that they used to do. So realistically, it's probably not going to be viable for much car production in the UK if we can't get this sorted. Perhaps they will. Disadvantages, though. Faith is placed in the reliability of suppliers, really important. And if you remember, we talked about it the other day of what these companies will do. People like Jaguar Land Rover, they will fine the couriers if they don't. They have a contract with couriers like Royal Mail and all the rest of them. Is it DPD? And they will fine them if they don't get things on time. So if they make them wait, because it completely halts all the production, they need to be able to continuously produce. And if the tyres don't turn up because Michelin haven't produced enough, or the company haven't produced enough, or whatever it is, or the courier hasn't brought enough, then we fine them, because we need to be able to do this. We need to be confident of the reliability of the suppliers. Increased ordering and admin costs. Of course, we're going to have that to an extent, because we're going to have to be completely doing it all the time. And if there is an admin cost to be doing it, we're going to need a purchasing team to be there all the time. It's not going to be the same as just doing it occasionally. The benefits of bulk buying may be lost, because we're only buying in very small incremental things, so we might lose that purchasing economies of scale. We might lose those. And difficult to cope with sharp increases in demand. You can see it in this country at the minute, can't you? Because just in time is so integral to a lot of the UK manufacturing, because we can't really find competitive advantage any other way, because of the fact of we've got a lot of employer rights and things like that. It's difficult for companies to make a profit as it is, pension contributions and things like that. So when they use just in time to get a competitive advantage, but the problem with it is when there is a sharp rise in demand, like there is a pandemic, or when there is seasonality. Seasonality is not that bad, because you can usually equate for it. You can usually get ready for it. But when it's sometimes really, really sunny in December, or it's pouring it down all the time in the middle of July or August or whatever it is, and they need other things, So these companies can't react fast enough, because they haven't got an ability to do that. That's not where the competitive advantage comes from. So factors for the effective implementation of just-in-time: a strong relationship with suppliers. Why? We know that, don't we? Because we need them on board. Effective communication within the workplace. Well, we need to be able to know that everybody knows this just-in-time. We need to be able to know when... sorry, I've just clacked the breaking news, but we'll talk about it in a minute. I can see it on my screen. Effective communication with the workplace, so that we know when things are going to be available. We know what we're going to need. We're going to need to know when things are going to have to be ordered by, and be able to be confident about our ability to order and things like that. Managers with a full understanding of the production process, so that they can adequately things. We don't need people who are in the workplace who are just pretending to know what they're talking about. And you will be surprised, you come across these people all the time, pretending to know what they're talking about, pretending to be on it, when in actual fact they don't know what the hell they're doing. And it happens all the time, especially in production and things like that. But in all workplaces, you get these people who pretend to do it. And you'd be surprised how many people are in senior positions who don't know what the hell they're doing, or they don't seem like they know what they're doing, and they've been put up to them, and things like that. And you'll have come across these people yourself. Don't assume that your boss is more intelligent than you. That's not how it works. It could be the right place at the right time. People have been promoted because there was no one else available, or maybe they were promoted because they were trying to get them away from you, essentially. So you're thinking, well, I don't want to work with him. Promote him then. Get him out there, and things like that. And some people get these crazy promotion jobs because they're very bad at the job. And it seems counterintuitive, but it does happen sometimes. We also need trained employees and people who are adequately trained, don't we? So some car manufacturers use sophisticated just-in-time systems that suppliers can be automatically notified when a car starts on the production line, so that components such as seats can be made and delivered to the production line at exactly the right time. The effectiveness of such a process would, of course, depend on the proximity and flexibility of suppliers and the use of electronic ordering systems. Yeah? Does it make sense? So when we talked about place, didn't we? If you go back, if you can't remember, we did one ages ago on place, a lesson on place, and why it was so important. We talked about infrastructure links and the closeness to suppliers, because if we are doing something like this, it is vitally important that we are able to be able to connection with those suppliers all the time, aren't we? All right. Now, third one, we're nearly done. Well, I say we're nearly done. We've got 2 to go, but it won't take us as long to talk about these. Okay. So, the third one of 4 is cell production. Now, remember, these are all lean production techniques. Remember, they're all about reducing waste. Definition. So the production line in cell production is subdivided into a number of cells, what we call cells. These cells are groups of workers involved in related tasks. So we clump them together to do a certain thing, all right? So they're not all doing exactly the same thing necessarily, but they are doing a part of the production process, all right? Cell production has the floor production line split into a number of self-contained units. Do you remember floor? Do you remember batch? Do you remember job? We talked about them the other day. Job production, individual customized products. Batch production, where we make a range of products, but we make them in sections. So we make identical products, but we'll make 50 of them and then release them. And this one, floor production, is when we're constantly outputting. All right, so in terms of this, we still want to be outputting, but we want to be able to break it down into little cells. So each team or cell is responsible for a significant part of the finished article. Team members are skilled at a number of roles rather than each person only carrying out one very specific task. This means that this is good for job rotation. So if someone's ill, or if you fancy a change, you can swap out, you can do something else. And cells deal with other cells if they were customers. Now, it's really important, this. So before we get into this of why this is important, what we mean by cells is they're completely they're a collection of people that are completely they're separated out into subdivisions. So you say you're making shoes, then you'll have the people who are working on the soles of the shoes. You'll have the people who are working on the insoles of the shoes. You'll have some people who are working on the outside of the shoes, the front of the shoe, the laces, whatever it is, creating that section ready to be put onto the next section. Now, the weird thing about cell production, though, is it deals with other cells, so the next stage in the production process and the stage before us, as if they were customers. So they're responsible for ensuring that good customer service, good quality goes through. So it's a really good quality assurance system, this as well. So if I was trying to make something, if I was trying to make a, what shall I make? I'll make some headphones, okay? Got some headphones here. So I'm going to make some headphones, okay? Now, what am I going to do? Well, if we were to use cell production, I would subdivide us up into smaller things, and I would have people doing different things. So, let's have a look. In terms of this, we could have some people working on the buds, so they're designing the implementation of these. Physical production of these. We could have some people working on the connection between here, so actually putting the string in terms of these. We've also got a microphone. How does that implement? We can get some people whose job it is to actually work on this section, and then we've got a person whose job it is to put this bit on at the end, this wire here, and also one that's in charge of this bit. And what we do is, if say we're in charge of this bit, which might be put on last, then that person checks this before that they do it, and they'll also check the other bits that it's all right. Oh, well, wait a minute, this button doesn't seem to be working. Well, wait a minute, this doesn't seem to be working. What's the problem there? Or there seems to be a quality issue. So the person who was putting this bit on, the before we put this bit on, this person will check everything before them as well. So they'll check this. So it gets checked and it gets checked and it's checked. And we have to make sure that if there is an issue with anything, it's very easy to track it back to where the problem started, because we can say, well, wait a minute, the earbuds don't fit on that one. That's not right. Okay, we'll go back to the earbud section. Well, what's going on? Because we need to stop production a section. Let's go and have a word with them. We can find out what the hell's going on. And that would hopefully be picked up right at the next stage of the production process, rather than right at the end of it, where we might be able to on normal ways. Okay, so everyone takes really takes responsibility for quality in their area, and it hopefully tries to improve that quality. It's a good system. So I mentioned shoes because Doc Martens use it. I will try and find the video for you and put it on the system, but I'll link it in the description if I can. But these are some of the things that Doc Martens said. So they did do it. They said that they were going to work with other people and things. This was really useful. Okay. So what were the improvements? Well, what they found was, in terms of these, what Doc Martens said was, when you finish doing your production for the week, you can go. So, for example, let's say that your production was supposed to be 200 pairs of shoes in a week. If you finished all those shoes by Thursday, you can have Friday off. And that's crazy, isn't it? But that's what they said, and people were like, "All right, okay." So really get the most out of your workforce, and the reason that the workforce did that is because they knew that that the company weren't going to take advantage of them. Because there's this argument, isn't there? If you were paid to if you're paid on piece rate and you're paid to do what per unit, then there is a vested interest in you to actually get units done. But if you're paid a salary and you're not paid by that, you're paid an hourly wage, and it doesn't matter how many you do, there is actually a vested interest to make less, because why kill yourself doing it when you can only make one? And if someone was there, coming in and doing loads more, then you would say, well, no. Say to that person, we know we can do these faster, but that's not the point. We're not going to kill ourselves doing it, and management will have a higher expectation of us if we do this. So instead of doing that, if management are straight with you and just say, look, we're not going to improve, we're not going to increase product or output in this. If you can produce this, is what we want you to produce. If we produce more than this, that's fantastic, but we're not going to increase the expectation on you, and you trust them. Remember, because it's all about expectancy theory. I don't know if we've talked about expectancy theory, but if we haven't, I think if you go back, we can talk about expectancy theory. But if we haven't, we will be talking about it. In terms of your expectation on them, do you trust your employer? Do you think that they're actually going to come through with it if they say they are? Then this has actually worked better for the business. So it's better teamwork, increased productivity. Absenteeism is down from 10% to 3%. Remember, absenteeism is the amount of people who we miss in terms of who are off during the week. Consistently or not consistently, just taking time off and things like that. But look at that, 10% down to 3%. And people want these jobs. That'd be fantastic, wouldn't it? You could work a 4-day week, but on a 5-day wage. Why can you do that? Well, because we're very efficient. We get our stuff done. We work hard 4 days a week to be able to get the 5th day's work done. Reduce costs as well, because remember, we're not if we are able to close the factory for a day or something like that, then that means that we're not having to heat it, we're not having to light it, we're not having to put security in it or whatever it is, because people aren't there if we're using it. And better for recruitment as well. They really did find it was people wanting to work there. Were there any problems? Well, it depends on which stakeholder perspective you come from for this, but 300 jobs were lost, yes, and 1 factory was closed. I'd say that from a business's perspective, though, is fantastic, because think of the efficiency savings of that 300 jobs. From an employee's perspective, from a trade union's perspective, no. That would be not good at all. That would be that would be disastrous. Depending on, could wreck a community. It could be a community perspective on that. But from a business's perspective, remember, lean production is all about reducing wastage. Think about that. We have massively reduced wastage. Fantastic. Now, in terms of these, you've already got these in your books. In terms of these, so feel free to pause the stream if you've not got them. Have a go at filling them in and things like that. A couple of these, so as I said, pause it. Okay, final one, that we've talked about. So we talked about Kaizen, you remember? So small incremental changes. We talked about cell production. We've talked about, introducing little cells. We've also talked about Kaizen groups and things like that, haven't we? We've also talked about just-in-time production. So just-in-time production, if you remember, is getting just what we need when we need it. We don't buy any more than we need, and we don't buy, and we only want them delivered when we absolutely need them. The final one that we're going to talk about today is called time-based management, and time-based management is a brilliant bit of kit. The time-based management, the emphasis is placed on reducing the time taken in all aspects of the whole production process. It involves concepts such as just-in-time, the use of CAD, do you remember from yesterday, from CAD-CAM, IT, robotics, that kind of stuff. We talked about technology. And CAM, critical path analysis, which we haven't talked about, we'll talk about in the second year, and simultaneous engineering when we make things more things at once. Time-based management is another aspect of lean production. It is a general approach that recognises the importance of time and seeks to reduce the level of wasted time in the production process. Now, you have got a big chunk of this in your books, if you've got the live book that goes with this. But for in purposes of this, let me just give you an example of a business. The main business who do time-based management, or who are famous for time-based management, if Toyota are Kaizen, then McDonald's are time-based management. McDonald's were one of the first companies to really start the fast food production line. They were the pioneers, or some of the pioneers of fast food in general, really. Let's just take it just to one step here. So they were really, really fundamental in the changes that that McDonald's made. And what they did was, I don't know if you've seen that there's a movie called The Founder, and it's all about the start of McDonald's and the McDonald's brothers and Ray Kroc, who became the owner of it and sort of made it become into the global behemoth that it is. But what they did was they were really the McDonald's brothers really thought about the layout of the kitchen. And they said, right, what we're going to do is we're going to break the kitchen up into different sections. So why is it that the fridge is over there? Why is it that the fryer's over there? Why are the buns over here? So what they did was they made floor production. They made a production line in food, which had never been done before. It just wasn't thought about. You go to a fast food restaurant, you go to a little restaurant at the side of the road. You were waiting for a couple of hours. Sorry, not a couple of hours, but you were waiting for 20, 30 minutes for your meal because they were making everything to scratch like they do in a restaurant now. So what the McDonald's brothers did is they said, right, well, how can we output more stuff? How can we make this more achievable? How can we make this more efficient? Because the amount of time we are wasting going from one place to another is crazy. So we need it to be more fluent. We need it to be more accessible. And what they did, and they show this on the movie, is they went on a tennis court and they actually drew the kitchen out with chalk on the floor, and they got the staff to come and stand and pretend to do the stuff. And then when they walked into each other, when they moved the situation, oh no, I've walked into each other, they realised, well, actually we need to move stuff. So they'd rub it all out and then they'd redo it, and then they did it and did it and did it until they found the most efficient way of doing it. And that is why time-based management became so fundamental in the management of McDonald's, and why McDonald's still use that. It's still extremely important to them. Kaizen, in terms of, is less important to McDonald's, and they're more bothered about reduction of waste. Lean production is really important to them. But they are really bothered about time-based management. They're obsessed with that idea of less wastage in time, being able to move from one section to another for it to be sensible, for us not to be wasting stuff and things like that. And they do just-in-time production to an extent, don't they? Because if you remember, we want the hamburgers, we want the chicken nuggets or whatever to be available just as we need them. We don't want them to be sat out for ages because they have this, is about 5 minutes or something. If it's out for more than 5 minutes, they've got to throw it away. That's wastage. They want to minimise that. So if you order something, they want to be, they will make it to order a lot of the time. But we need that. If that's the case, we need to be able to order it fast. We need to be able to make it fast to be able to produce to you. Okay, I hope that makes sense. I think McDonald's is a fantastic company in that respect. They were truly revolutionary with this, and there were other companies doing it at the same time. But McDonald's, if you're ever talking about time-based management, if you're a member about McDonald's, you will be on a good footing. All right. Now, stakeholder impact of lean production. Now, the last thing I want to talk about today is stakeholder impact. Now, this is an opportunity for you to do. I want you to spend some time today, make a mind map of all the different ones. So customers, employees, owners, government, local community, trade unions, customers, the lot of them, all right? Just get them, and I want you to think about the positives and negatives that affect these. And we're going to have a little look at a past paper question in a second. I know this has been intense. I know we've done 4 big topics today, and we've done them all in under 55 minutes. That's impressive, isn't it? I know I speak very fast, but hopefully I've been efficient, and hopefully I've not wasted your time-based management, yeah? Because I'm important. I want to give you the bare minimum. I want to get you this stuff so that you can go and have a look more into it. You can practice your stuff, but I want to make sure that we don't waste loads of time on stream doing these things, yeah? So I want you to have a go at this, and I want you to just try and make a mind map. Mind maps are brilliant for just getting that information down. Some people like writing stuff out. I personally don't like writing stuff out. Go and have a look into this stuff if you don't. Remember, vise it in the first place. Don't revise it. Vise it in the first place. Learn it properly to begin with. So have a go at that. Let's have a look at a past paper question. All right. Now, in terms of this, there is apparently a past paper question. I'm going to just grab it off here. One moment. And I will show you the Cadbury thing. I will put it on the stream for you so you can see it. Okay. Here we are. Right, okay. So we'll just hold it there for a second. I'll just hold it there. All right. So it says John Cadbury opened his first shop in 1824. Since then, the business has continued to grow and nowadays provides the world with many of its favourite brands, e.g., Dairy Milk, Flake, Crunchy, etc. Some of its items it makes are seasonal: cream eggs, Easter eggs, Christmas puddings, whilst others are required throughout the year in vast quantities. Cadbury is also known for its annual donation of a giant Easter egg to Great Ormond Street Hospital for children. I didn't know that. In an attempt to continue its growth, Cadbury, like many other companies nowadays, is keen to embrace some or all of Japanese approaches to management. The Japanese approach is to focus on three main elements: strategic goals being more important than long-term profit, a trained workforce that is given a key role in improving methods, and lean production. Cadbury does not use a single method of organising production, but a mixture, and it uses robots to pick up bars of chocolate and then put them into boxes. Naturally, quality assurance is a vital part of the business. If it gets this wrong, it could severely damage its profits, but also could severely damage you. All right, so let's get rid of that. Let's have a look. So it says highlight and label everywhere AO2 is present. Can you pinpoint any words that help with the AO2? So we want to be looking at things like seasonality, don't we? We want to be looking at things like that. So there is also a given like perfect answer that's been given in your workbook, but I've got it here. So let's have a look at the model answer for this. Okay, now in terms of this, if we had the question, let's just have a look at the question again. Sorry, I should have shown you that, shouldn't I? So let's just have a look at the question. The question is, explain the benefits of lean production to a business such as Cadbury. 4 marks. So very, very quick one, this, but we do know it's got AO1 and AO2 in it, hasn't it? So explain the benefits of lean production. So we just need to, 2 points of why this is good, and then apply it to Cadbury. Let's have a look at this past paper model answer. So lean production is the approach to production to reduce the quantity of resources used up in production, to reduce the costs and raise productivity. So that is your definition. Don't forget your definition at the start of your answers. Just get it in there. Okay. A benefit of lean production is that the level of waste is substantially reduced. This is particularly useful to Cadbury, as they will reduce the costs of raw materials, as they are likely to ship in the ingredients like cocoa from overseas. Now, with that, we need to raise, where's the AO2? The fact you've mentioned cocoa, the fact that you're talking about moving overseas. We're not just talking about any business, all right? A second benefit that would be increases productivity, as they are more efficiently turning them inputs into outputs. This would reduce lead times so that Cadbury has periods of high demands, such as Easter. It will be able to better satisfy them customers. Now, where's the AO2? Well, there it is, isn't it? It's in talking about Easter. It's talking about the fact that there would be certain times of the year where we have high demand. Okay, now I've actually written these down for you here. Let's go have a look. So I've just highlighted them for you. All right, so that's your AO2. That's what I need you to be working on. So if you know that you struggle with AO2, if it's something that you go, oh, I know I struggle with this, I know I struggle getting it actually applied to a situation, don't overthink it. Just say, why is it important for that business? And if it doesn't ask for a specific business like Cadbury, then you can talk about a new business, you can talk about an old business, you can talk about a well-established business, you can talk about, you know, there's a range of things at play here, isn't there? All right. So, ladies and gents, that brings us to the end of lean production. And I know we've done a hell of a lot today. So thank you very much for sticking with me, and thank you very much for getting involved in terms of this. You know, it is really important that we don't lose focus in these crazy times. So, last thing we're going to do today, as we do at the end of the stream every day, is we're going to have a look at the news. So, let's have a look at the news. And let's just have a quick refresh. Let's find out what it is. Oh, look, this is what came up halfway through the stream, by the way. Boris Johnson and fiancée announced birth of son. Yeah, Prime Minister Boris Johnson and Carrie Symonds announced the birth of a son at London Hospital. Oh, isn't that lovely? Oh, that's just what this country needs, isn't it? Or Royal Britannia and everything like that. You know, Boris Johnson, might remind you, although being the Prime Minister of the country, also doesn't really know. Wasn't it said that he doesn't know how many kids he's got? Or he won't say how many kids he's got? That's worrying. So, congratulations to them. I hope he's okay and everything like that. But, you know, that's quite frightening, isn't it? Okay, let's have a look at these. Now, usually, I don't usually want to draw attention to negative stuff, you know, and I don't want to really harp on about coronavirus all the time. But I've just spotted this. We need to look at this, don't we? It says here, US confirms 1 million coronavirus cases. Wow, that's insane, isn't it? 9 killed in Peru riots over COVID-19 deaths. 9 inmates have been killed in a prison riot in Peru, according to authorities. The riot broke out in Castro prison in Lima after 2 prisoners died of COVID-19. 2 inmates, 5 police officers, and 60 prison guards were injured. Wow, that was a big one, wasn't it? Was there nothing about this thing? Politicians, yeah, whatever. Who cares what's happening to Boris Johnson? Let's have a quick look at this. I know that you can't hear it, but let's have a look. Is that the same? I don't know why it's showing that anywhere. But anyway, so that's significant, isn't it? Wow, this is big. So it says staff and residents of care homes over 65s and people who cannot work at home are now eligible to be tested for COVID-19. I don't know what they're hoping to prove by this, that you don't have it now. Well, yeah, I mean, I know that there's an incubation period and things like that, but ultimately I'd be thinking less about that and thinking more about the fact that, are you going to get it? Let's have a look at the business news. Odeon owner bans Universal films in home. What's this? The owner of Odeon Cinema has banned all Universal films from its theatres after the studio said it will release new movies at home and on the big screen on the same day. Whoa. AMC Entertainment boss Adam Aron said that the ban will cover its 1,000 cinemas. He said it follows comments from NBC Universal, which said that the film's Tron World Tour had been performed well despite only being available on streaming services. The children's film had reported and generated sales of nearly 100 million. Trolls World Tour was scheduled for release in cinemas at the beginning of April. However, the cinemas currently closed because of the COVID-19 pandemic. It was offered a premium video on demand, a streaming platform such as Apple TV. Jeff Sell, president and chief executive of NBC Universal, parent company of the film studio, told the Wall Street Journal that the film had exceeded our expectations and demonstrated the viability of streaming. As soon as theatres reopen, we expect to release movies on both formats. But in a letter to Universal Studios chair Donna Langley, Mr. Aaron accused the studio of trying to have its cake and eat it too. He said AMC believes that with the proposed action to go to home and theatre simultaneously, Universal is breaking the business model and dealings between the two companies. He said going forward, AMC will not license any Universal movies in any of our thousands theatres globally on these terms, and he accused the company of using the pandemic to alter its existing release structure. Universal does not have any reason to use unusual circumstances in unprecedented environment as a springboard to bypass true theatrical releases. Interesting. Wow, that's significant, isn't it? I didn't know about that. Wow. Yeah. I mean, from the business's perspective, we are business people ourselves. We are business students. We need to look at this, look at it from the different perspectives here. They are seeing it as an opportunity to make some money, aren't they? If they can bypass a big thing, it's lean production, isn't it? As I said, we talk about lean production. This is it, isn't it? It's minimizing costs. So we're minimizing costs. We're able to cut a middleman out of the situation. If we can get it direct to people, would people still want to go to the cinemas? Can we still get it out onto to thingy? Personally, I've got a 1-year-old, so I can't go to the cinema. So yeah, bring them all out. I want to see them at home. I'll pay 15 quid to watch a thing because it would be how much I'd pay at the cinema. Yeah, I'll watch it at home. Let's do it. Be fantastic if I can watch it on release. That'd be brilliant. I bet there's a lot of people who it would massively benefit. So from a customer's or a consumer's perspective, from our stakeholders' perspective, that's brilliant, isn't it? Really, really helpful for us. But there's going to be a hell of a lot of people it's going to negatively affect. What about Odeon? What about the cinema people? What about the people who work at the cinemas? What about the communities around the cinemas? That's massive. Wow. I'm surprised that's not bigger. It says here, British Airways set to cut up to 12,000 jobs as the air travel collapses. It says British Airways is set to cut up to 12,000 jobs from its 42,000 strong workforce. That's significant, isn't it? That's what, probably about 35%, 30%, something like that. That's significant. Due to the collapse in business, this is what we're talking about in terms of seasonality of business and things like that. In this regard, this is just a reaction to the external environment, the pandemic that is going on, isn't it? But in other circumstances, then you could definitely reason out why this would be happening if it was seasonal or something else happening. It says the pilots union BALPA said it was devastated at the news and vowed to fight every single job cut. In a statement, IAG said the proposals remain subject to consultation, but it is likely that they will affect most of British Airways employees and may result in the redundancy of up to 12,000 of them. And this is the problem of business, and this is the problem that we're going to be dealing with. I've been talking to students recently who were talking about dropping courses and things like that, and I've just been saying to them, look, this is not the time. Maybe 6 months ago, maybe if you could get an apprenticeship or something, but we are going to be coming into a different world at this point. So please, please, please hold on to what you've got. It's important, the education, the job that you've got. Do not be being frivolous with it at this moment. It's not the time to do it. Let's do one more. McDonald's trials UK branch reopening in lockdown. Fast food fans have been buoyed by news that burger chain McDonald's is testing reopening the branch this week. The bad news for the Hungry Fork is that the branch will only open for operational tests and remain closed to customers. The chain said recently we began working through a potential and limited reopening, but it refused to set a date on the customers would be able to pick up a Happy Meal again. Restarting our business is not an easy task, even when reopening in a limited capacity, said Paul Pomeroy, McDonald's UK and Ireland Chief Executive. For now, we remain closed and will only reopen when we are absolutely confident we can have the right measures in place to make sure everyone's real well-being. He says rumours began circulating that the chain would start serving the popular Big Mac meals last week after the Irish Farmers Journal reported that some branches would open in May. Remember, this is stakeholders at the end of the day, isn't it? Suppliers are already talking to the media and things like that. We've been listening to our employees and customers as well as engaging with the government. These are all stakeholders and trade bodies to help ensure that we do this responsibly when the time is right. He said that McDonald's had set some key criteria for reopening, all of which take time. Interesting that he doesn't actually explicitly tell you what those things are they? Okay. And that is Wednesday stream. Thank you very much for joining us. I feel like we had a good stream today. I enjoyed that one. Particularly like lean production though. So I hope you enjoyed it. I hope it was useful for you. I hope you're keeping safe. And I hope to see you tomorrow. That was good, wasn't it? It was like a little sign off thing. But anyway. Peace.